Hello and welcome to our first ever Skanwear Power Hour podcast. I'm Dan Henderson. I'm joined here today by Ray Spearman, an industrial electrician, retired industrial electrician. And today we're going to be discussing the importance of electrical safety, lessons learned across an entire lifetime in industry. And finally, we're going to look at personal experiences to highlight why electrical safety should never be taken for granted. So Ray, tell us a bit about you and your background.
So I worked my whole career in a local paper mill. I was there for 42 years. So I started back in 1981. I served an electrical apprenticeship, qualified, and never left. So I was asked if I wanted to be an electrician. It wasn't really a case of wanting to be an electrician. I just was ready to leave school, and I wanted some money in my pocket. And luckily for me, this paper mill had opened within the last 10 years, just up the road. So luckily I managed to secure the electrical apprenticeship, and then that was it.
Never left.
So when I first started, there was 1,200 people there, and then due to automation, cost cutting, technology, it was down to 400 people when I left. Nowadays, it's unusual to find anybody spending all that time at the same place, but in that particular paper mill, it was one of the only factories in the area, so it wasn't uncommon for people who started in the 70s and 80s to still be there well into the 20th century.
It's really interesting. I think one of the big points is, I was going to ask you why you wanted to become an electrician, but I think going from school and making that decision to get a skill and a craft, I think we're seeing the other side of that now, where there was a significant, probably 2-decade period where the big push was the other way to push people to go to university and into further education. So not many people were then going and getting trades, and we're still kind of on the other side of that now, trying to bridge those gaps where we haven't got enough competent, skilled workers. We've got things like data centers going up at scale. We've got renewables, getting erected and installed across the country, well, everywhere really. And everywhere's in the same position where we haven't got enough skilled workers to apply themselves to those. So it's I think that's quite interesting, in the shift between when you did that then in comparison to where we are now.
Yeah, well, I think when I started, there was the opportunity to move from job to job, perhaps not as much as back in the 60s, but certainly as you allude to now, there's a massive skills shortage.
Yeah.
Lack of apprenticeships, lack of opportunities, lack of industry.
And what were those? What did the apprenticeship look like? So when you were serving your time, what did that look like in comparison to apprenticeships now in the same place?
I think the advantage I had, it was a 4-year apprenticeship, so there was 4 days at site and 1 day and 1 night at college. But when we were on site, there was lots and lots of experienced electricians in my case who you could learn from. Nowadays at that factory, before I left 3 years ago, there was down to the bare bones. So the opportunities for the youngsters, clever youngsters, to get experience on site was a lot different. And because of the new machinery, it doesn't break down that much. So you could go a long period of time with no access to actually doing anything. So, but back in my day, there was always something wrong.
So you didn't get skill fade as much because you were working on the
all the
equipment
time. Yeah.
all the time.
So I think that's a big difference.
Yeah. And I suppose that period of time when you finished your apprenticeship, were you then just let loose in your area to do work? What did that
No,
look like?
you had to spend, I think it was about a year with qualified people, and then your competency was assessed before you were let loose on your own, as it were.
It's really interesting. In comparison with now, I think we were saying the other day, weren't we, around you've got restrictions in your final year around not being allowed to work live inside of panels. Yeah, when that clock strikes and you're now out of your time, you can now go and work live.
You can. It's crazy. So one day you're not allowed in a panel. The very next day you are, without any experience or anybody around you to keep you on the right track. There's so few maintenance people on site, and they're all busy with whatever they're doing. So
yeah,
they haven't got time to chaperone, fledglings.
One of the questions I was going to ask you was, what do you think the biggest changes on electrical safety from when you first started to when you finished? But I think that kind of answers a lot of it. Is the supervision and the development of competence and younger individuals coming through. From then, where you've got the people, the experience and the supervision to apply, in comparison to now when you've got people with limited experience coaching when they can, and then not really having the knowledge and experience to suitably assess them on the other side before they.
Yeah, well, because there's lots of people there when I first started, and you didn't know the answer. You could always find someone who did. So the collective brain of our department was eroded as the people left and they weren't replaced.
It's interesting, as in like the collective brain. So there's always someone there with a
Somebody
piece
would
of
know.
the puzzle that you
Somebody
can
would
ask.
have come across that before, but as the numbers dwindled, became basically no one to ask. So you had to figure it out yourself, which is obviously not as safe as asking somebody who's been through that before.
Yeah, that's really interesting. No, thanks, Ray. Appreciate that. Okay, we'll probe a bit more now and look at risks that are posed with electrical safety. So we had a brief conversation the other day, Ray, where we were talking about what the biggest risks were in electrical safety to workers today. I was keen to get your experience, and obviously something that you rightly come back with was it depends which part of electrical work you're in, because it's such a wide range, and I think a lot of people overlook that. So whether you're working on domestic house electrical systems, or whether you're working on transmission, distribution, the sort of higher voltages, and then anything in between. But maybe we just focus on like the environment that you were in. So in that industrial heavy environment, what would you think the biggest risks are to people working in that environment?
Yeah, well, as we all know, you're much more likely to have a trip or a slip or hit your thumb with a hammer than you are to have an electrical incident. Probably due to technology, trips and drives tripping out, and it is difficult to hurt yourself. I think that can lead to complacency because nothing does happen very often, but when it does, unlike a lot of other accidents with electricity, it can be catastrophic.
Yeah, it's a really good point. So complacency, and I think that's the point, is it might be less frequent, but the consequences are significantly higher, aren't they? So it's with complacency then, do you think is that common shortcuts or behaviors that then increase the likelihood? Like what do you think the common behaviors are that would lead to complacency or incidents happening in the workplace?
Well, complacency is one option, but also pressures from above to get the job fixed quickly, and like we touched on earlier, lack of experience for the electrician.
Yeah, I find a lot of incidents at low voltage. It's often, it's a pressured environment, and it's just low voltage is the thing. But it doesn't reduce the risk any. You often get higher current levels, don't you? At
Definitely.
low voltage, so it's definitely shouldn't be taken for granted. So just with that then, I know that you've had you've yourself had an incident. Would you be comfortable to talk through that, what happened,
Yeah.
and give us a bit of information on it?
So I thought I was a safe electrician, and I did everything by the book, and I was going along swimmingly. Then one day in May 2004, it all changed. So I made an incorrect decision whilst changing a component on the back of an MCC motor control section. The contactor was broken, so I got one from the stores, and it wasn't the same style that we'd fitted for years and years. It had different mountings, so I got in my head that I would drill some 5mm holes and mount this contactor.
What would you have done in the past? Just taken one that was direct and then fitted it in the exact same location, so you wouldn't need to drill any holes? Or...
Yeah, but it was my fault. I shouldn't have been drilling holes at all. But for whatever reason on that day, I just got me drill and drilled a hole, and the drill bit came into contact with the LV buzz bar, and there was a big flash. So I didn't get electrocuted, but I got burns to my both hands and arms and a bit of my face. So I spent 3 weeks in the burns unit at the RVI.
Wow.
And I was off work for about 10 months. And then when I did go back, I was like nervous about working with electricity. So that's when I moved into the facilities department. And that was where I stayed for the last 20 years. So after a couple of years, my physical wounds healed. I've got a few little bits of scarring where I had skin graft. But I still think about it a lot, and that's 22 years down the track.
Yeah, it's not great.
I never thought about anything about this until it happened to me, and then I realised the psychological stuff that people go through after they have accidents, and it's not nice. So I'd recommend people not to follow my lead.
I mean, at the time then when you were doing the job, so you'd probably replaced contractors one for one many times before, I would imagine.
Many times before.
In that MCC, that motor control centre in particular, that was like 400 volt, 1600 amp board.
400 volt. But lots of the smaller motors, they were controlled by a small panel, which you could actually withdraw from the unit and take it to the bench and work on it. But
yeah.
The bigger one, the one I was working on, it had a door that opened.
Yeah.
The kit was like mounted on the back plate.
I think they were 400 amp fused, if I remember.
But I mean, I had options. With thinking back on it, I could have not done it at all. Could have waited, but I was trying to get the job away for the plant.
Yeah. Often people don't set out to think, I'm going to do this job because it's dangerous. They often think I took
that on myself to do it. But thinking back, if there'd been a process where I had to get permission, or two of us had to decide it was a good idea, rather than.
Did you know what was behind? Did you suspect that there was buzz bars?
To be honest, I didn't even give it a thought. But I did know.
We just in single.
But on that particular day, I just, for whatever reason, it didn't cross my mind, basically.
And in that moment, so you're mounting it, or you're starting to get prepared to mount it, so you're drilling through into those panels. Did anything in you like get a niggle to say stop doing what you're doing, or did you just?
But if that had happened to somebody else, I would have been the first one to say, "Well, what do you do that for? That's stupid." But on that particular day, it just didn't cross my mind.
And in the past, I mean, this a question that I've got, I suppose, around from where you were before, when you had a larger department, to where you were then, and you had a smaller department. For a job like that, would you have typically been working in pairs, like an accompaniment, where you'd have someone?
I probably would have been working in a pair, and I probably would have been directed by a supervisor to, he would give you the work in the morning,
mm-hmm.
but as the numbers dropped, you were kind of your own boss, as it were.
It's that autonomy we need.
So we didn't have supervision in some of the areas anyway.
Yeah.
They'd long gone.
That's an interesting difference when we're talking about those changes in electrical safety, though. Like, so if it was done before that period of time, that significant change, potentially someone else would have stopped. Or the person with you, a second pair of eyes, just to say, look, I think there might be, but I suppose unfortunately you didn't have someone there because of the circumstance. When you drilled through, so when you actually came into contact with the buzz bar, what happened in that moment? What was the sort of?
It was just a big bang and a big flash, and I was in shock because the first person that come along, he said, "Blimey, what's happened to you?" And I said,
So were you all right in that moment? What did you?
No,
were you hurting or like?
Nah, I wasn't hurting to start with.
You didn't feel it?
I think I was in shock.
And then,
I was in shock.
And then what, you left the substation?
I left the substation. I bumped into a colleague, and he took me down to the nurse, who I later had a chat with, and she said she was shocked because it was she'd never seen anything like that before. She did as best she could. She wrapped my arms in cling film and got the ambulance to come. And
do you mind if I asked what you were wearing at the time? What workwear you had on?
I was just wearing a t-shirt, a workwear t-shirt.
So you would have if
I had a boiler suit on, it would have obviously protected, not my hands, but it would have protected my arms.
Did you get any level of protection from what you were wearing?
No.
So did you get where were your injuries worst? On your where you had exposed skin? So your
on my hands and my left arm was the worst. But I was kind of lying down, but the panel was low at the ground. So luckily, my head was kind of didn't catch the
blast.
The blast, apart from slightly on the left hand side, but it was mainly the arms.
It's horrible. In that time, so you went to hospital. When you went in, did you expect what the treatment would be like? Did you expect to be in for?
I thought it'd be out this. I thought my wife came. She was called from work, and she came along, and I said, "I'll be home tonight," but I wasn't home for 3 weeks.
Thought you'd be home for tea.
Yeah.
But it's
But the point I'm trying to make is, physically I healed, but mentally I was never the same. It changes your personality.
what was your time like in the burns unit? What sort of things were going through your head, if you don't mind me asking?
It was, I've never really got over the fact that it was my fault, and I always think, why did I do it? And it just pops into your head at the most inopportune moment.
I suppose blaming yourself because you were there, you did it, but in reality there was a lot of controls that weren't in place. So there wasn't the right level of supervision. You hadn't had the right instruction, so you didn't know where the buzz bars were. There was no labeling to say, buzz bars behind. You often see that on boards, things like that.
Possibly, but it was still a thing that I should.
But I know you did it, so you'll feel, I actually did that act, so it was on me. But and I get that, but it's horrible that you sat on your own in hospital being treated. Did you say you went through skin grafts and probably a lot of painkillers, and in your mind you can't escape the fact that I did it, I did this and created this situation. It's not nice.
Not nice. So if you can avoid it, basically that's the point I'm trying to get out to anybody else. If you might think you're going along fine, but it just takes one mistake which can change the rest of your life.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, isn't it? To focus in on. I mean, that's the physical, and you mentioned the psychological side. So you were off for a significant period.
I was off for 10 months.
10 months. It's a long time to be out, and I suppose the longer you're away as well, you probably think more in depth around the incident and what people are thinking.
Yeah, well, I didn't want to go back, but the firm were good to me. I got full wages for that 10 month, but it was coming to make a decision, either terminate your employment or come back and we'll find a different role for you. So when I went back, it was, people were pleased to see you. It was fine. I was there another 20 years after that.
I suppose an interesting point with that is, you were unlucky, but lucky in a way that you had some support there from an organisation where you could go into a role where if you weren't confident, like maybe you weren't to go back on the tools or be working in those environments again, that you had that option, or they gave you an option. Whereas if you were a self-employed electrician, if that was your livelihood, your income to support your family and things like that, if you had the same incident but then couldn't face going back to work in the same way that you did, that's your career over, isn't it? It's your income in jeopardy.
I was lucky that the firm looked after me,
so like the point
that was a good thing.
that you said, I guess, is the impact on you from a financial side and a support to go back to work was probably different to what others might experience in their situation. So
yeah, quite possibly.
Yeah, sweet. So when you went back, what was that like? So going back after such a significant period of time out, what did you have to take any different precautions when you're on site, or did you work differently in that first, say, 6 months?
Oh, it took a long time to get back into the swing of it. But when I first went back, I was still wearing these protective gloves to reduce the effects of the scars.
Yeah.
So I was had these 2 black gloves on, wandering around the factory, which makes you feel uncomfortable. I think everybody's looking at you. But, I don't think they were, but that's the thought in your own head. You put pressure on yourself in situations like that. Yeah,
I think we spoke about that, the other day, that you get these feelings and these thoughts, like, people are looking and maybe judging, and walking around and different. But in reality, people probably don't give a crap, do they?
They don't give a crap.
They've all got things going on themselves, where they probably don't care about you and your appearance and what you've done. Probably more just you putting that on you.
But like I was telling you about that guy I met at the golf, he's got 2 nephews, and they're both deaf, and they won't play golf with anybody else because they feel
like judged.
Where they wouldn't be, but that's what they've got to get over. And he keeps trying to tell them nobody will be bothered, they'll be supportive, but up to now they haven't been able to bring themselves to do it. So
following your incident, was there like an investigation into what happened?
Yeah, there was an investigation. The HSC were involved, and
so you had the health and safety executive attend and go through all
that,
the whole process.
The company was saying it was my fault. I was competent electrician. I shouldn't have done it, and then obviously my side of the argument was, well, I didn't know where those buzz bars were. I was never given correct instructions and that sort of thing.
I mean, you wouldn't unless you'd been invasively inside of that switchgear. It's
But obviously I was trying to fight my corner at the time.
Yeah, that's fair.
Rather than saying I shouldn't have done it.
And was the investigation aimed at trying to prevent it happening again, or was it pure? Was it more mitigation to put the company in a better light than the employee?
The company. I think it was just lip service from the company because they were of the opinion that they'd done all they needed to do, and it was my fault.
So, what changes did the company make after that? So, did they change the way they worked, or how they like supervision, or did they introduce any I suppose protective measures like PPE as an example?
Not really, because like I say, I think they were just saying that we weren't to blame, so we don't need to change anything. But an interesting thing, the guy from the HSC, he asked me who that I think was likely to have an electrical incident, and I just said at the time somebody who's not familiar with electrical stuff. And he said, no, totally the opposite. It's an electrician who's going to get an electrical incident because he's the one who's potentially comes into contact with that stuff on a daily basis.
Regular basis.
And it makes sense when you think about it. If you're a joiner or a plumber, you're not going to be anywhere near electricity, are you?
Yeah, no, it's definitely, yeah. I mean, just to apply some context, Ray and I worked together for a period of time post his accident. I wasn't even aware of it. But when I joined as the electrical duty holder, so I was responsible for the electrical network. One of the first things that I identified was that there wasn't any measures in place for around like electrical safety rules and electrical PPE. So the guys that were still doing switching on 11 kV, 3.3 kV or LV networks, they were still in the same design polycotton shirts that Ray had when he had his incident. So reflecting back on that root cause analysis that would have potentially been done back in 2004, 2005, they probably haven't then looked at measures to prevent mitigation of it happening again in future, or the impacts of it. They probably just looked at, by the looks of things, were the measures that they took up at that point adequate, which they probably thought, yeah, they are.
Just on that point, if you've gone back to the 80s and 90s when we had lots of people, all of those rules and safety equipment was in place. And as the numbers dropped, a lot of it went by the wayside. So we did have it, and then we didn't have it.
Yeah.
Basically because of the numbers and the skills that we were lost.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. I think one of the big things that I reflected on after I learned about your accident, so up until the other day, I wasn't even aware of like the details behind it. I think when I first joined and you were in my department, again, we had quite a small department. One of the first things I did was trying to do sort of benchmark where we were from an engineering side. So electrical distribution was a big one. So we had a lot of HV and LV equipment, and a lot of it hadn't been maintained. Inspections around the substations, things like that. But even the infrastructure, well, it was falling apart, wasn't it? A lot of it, because it was aging by this point. And sort of big things were, as we were kind of trying to benchmark where we were, I was getting access to like funding as an example to make changes, and at times, I think I said this to you for the first time the other day, sometimes I thought you're a bit of a pain in the arse, it was
thanks for that.
Yeah. We're all friends here, Ray.
Yeah, I know.
It was I sensed reluctance, and like kind of digging your heels in. And I remember having a conversation with one of your colleagues, or our colleagues, who he'd been there a similar amount of time to you, and I said, "Why is Ray not pushing this? It's in his wheelhouse. This is something that he is interested in, but he seems to be digging his heels in." And he said, "Do you not know about his accident?" And he kind of just gave me a quick whistle stop and said that you'd had an arc flash incident, and instantly, I mean, I felt terrible because I'd been asking you to you should be doing switching, Ray, or you should be going on the substations doing these inspections and getting up close and personal with the gear. And obviously I didn't understand that you'd had an incident. So I felt awful. Should have probably spoke to you about it. I did the classic British thing and buried my head. It'll be fine. It'll all go away. But that's interesting because that's sort of what, like 15 years. So I would have been about 10 years on since your accident or since you returned to work.
Yeah.
And in that time, just as an outsider, that would be my view of you and your professional competency, how you come across. But in reality, you've had something that's impacted that, and it's not fair on you, is it, as an individual to have someone think that when in reality they don't know the context. Again, I don't know how that would come across. What I would do differently, probably ask more.
So if that's an apology, I accept.
It is an apology, Ray. I'm sorry. I suppose on the same point, one of the things that I did notice as well in hindsight in that early time in my career there was that the electrical networks, if we're just focusing on electrical safety, were dated, they were getting on. And it's similarly, in similar vein, I identified some areas, put a plan together, presented it as a business case, and then started getting, some funding and some support. And again, when I was kind of trying to get our department to do that, I was, again, why is the reluctance here? Why don't we, we've got the resource. Why can't we just make it happen? And at the same time, same conversations, it was, I didn't know that you'd been asking for this for 10 plus years. And the line I got was, you can only bang your head against a brick wall for so long before you stop caring. And, it's not that you didn't care. It was a case that you'd asked for it, you wanted it, and you didn't get the support you needed to, do you agree with those thoughts?
I do. Well, so do you, because that's why you ultimately left, isn't
it? Well, they're flying now, from what I hear. I think it's I suppose the point is around how do we advise management in the right way, isn't it? And get the right support we need, and highlight the importance. So, I mean, if you had to give any advice to managers, I mean, the difference was in the past you had technical people managing you. So when you highlighted an issue, they could understand what you were saying and then process it and then give you a response like suitable to that, like whether they're going to support you or defer the work or the investment. Whereas like you mentioned, and like I experienced working for non-technical management in operations, as an example, an engineering function where you've got technical people responsible for high risk, high consequence systems, working for operational staff where, if we're going to be honest, production's king. Getting that output out the door is the main thing. What advice would you give to a manager that you were speaking to now around taking notice of the things that the engineers are saying or the technicians are saying?
Well, obviously in the 80s and 90s when maintenance was running the factory, it worked much better, but I understand that was really expensive, and that's why things had to change. So when production's in charge, it's the tail wagging the dog, and I know that's not going to change, but I would advise the management to listen to the people who know what they're talking about around mechanical and electrical issues.
Yeah, no, I think that's a real point, isn't it? It's getting that point across and then being listened to, whether they accept it or listen to it.
I don't really understand why they wouldn't. It seems common sense. If you're a manager, you've got to listen to the experts.
Yeah, I mean, when I joined, the electrical system hadn't been maintained for some areas around 20 years, some of it, and it was critical.
But that should never have been allowed to happen, should it?
It shouldn't have. But someone made a decision on that. Someone decided. So the resources, obviously, that you need. I mean, back in the day, you had the in-house resource to maintain the equipment and things like that. But the big thing, the challenge that I had to overcome initially was I need the downtime, which is obviously a resource. I need you to let me shut this down in order to do the maintenance and make sure that it's safe and it's operational. What decisions do you think the management were thinking to decide, actually, no, I won't let you shut that down? Do you think it's just lack of knowledge, or?
Must be. Is it not illegal?
Well, it's a bit grey, subject to risk assessment. As long as it doesn't give rise to danger, that's the...
I think they probably didn't understand.
But I mean, the lights went out a couple of times, didn't they, when we were there unplanned, and they start to care, don't they, then when things happen? That tends to be...
the stuff that you were involved with, the HV stuff, you were probably the only person on that site that even understood it. So the difference between deliberately not doing something when you understand it and not doing it because you don't know what they're talking about.
So after you went back to work, Ray, after your incident, and you said you went into the facilities management department or in site services, you'd gone from that switch in how you're working, looking after your own works and your own safety whilst working, to now looking after mainly contractor management and delivery of services. How did you work to that? How do you apply your skills and knowledge to that different way of working?
So it was all new to me. There was only 2 of us in our department, and I learned a lot from my colleague at the time. He showed us the ropes. So our workforce at the time, there was only enough people to be part of the production environment. So anything else they needed doing, heating, lighting, plumbing, drainage, all of that had to be outsourced to contractors. And then every time the contractor came on site, he had to be given a work permit. So we had bits of paper flying around all over. And then obviously they weren't familiar, a lot of them weren't familiar with the site. Some of them were regulars, but some of them were just in for one particular job.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a lot of forklift truck movement, traffic signals and zebra crossings, and there was a big potential for a contractor who wasn't familiar with the site to be injured. And if it was competent electrician, but you wouldn't know a lot of the areas, isolation. So there's a lot of work just getting the guy to the actual job and making sure he's doing it safely.
Yeah, it's interesting because beforehand the person would know the area, the job, the equipment, and now you're bringing in third-party support that aren't familiar.
I created the work permits, a bit of paper, because I had to. That was the rules from the health and safety. But it was just a bit of paper. So
what would you actually do though?
What I used to do was, the day before, got such a vast site, I would go to the area and find the area owner, because we had lots of little area owners, and I would have a discussion with them, say tomorrow or whenever, we've got these guys coming to repair your lights or whatever it was, and I would get them on side, and I would say, can you make sure that if anything else is going on in that area, you cancel it, or if you don't want me to come tomorrow, tell us when I can come. And I found that was a better way of, getting a head start on the job before we actually turned up.
So in the work planning phase, you'd be speaking to the person that was impacted and make sure that there was no, I suppose, conflicts of risk.
It's only a courtesy, but it worked well.
Yeah. And what about the contractors themselves? Are things like getting their competencies and risk assessments, method statements?
They had to provide risk assessments and method statements and some of their training records. So that used to come through on the computer beforehand. But once he arrived, you could tell straight away if they weren't any good. So if you just didn't use them anymore. But most of them were really good.
So you'd apply your engineering judgment that you've built up over that time to assess how do they apply the job, or the professional, they got the right stuff and right equipment.
But some of the jobs, I was electrical biased, and but we did have maybe H&V and things like that, and air conditioning. So I didn't know anything about that, so I had to rely on the contractor to be competent.
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10 they were.
Yeah. So the all that work that you did in advance, then, so I suppose speaking with the contractor, find out how they're going to do the job, getting that documented and sent through, their competencies and the work planning with the area, that, and then you're saying, I suppose, that bit of paper on the day, that work permit that you issue. For things like cutting the grass or air conditioning maintenance and things like that, do you feel like that bit takes some of the importance away from the work planning elements? Because do you have to? Is there anything documented to say you had to do that, or was it purely, that everyone must be issued with this piece of paper?
Yeah, it was a trail. The reason they did all that was for a paper trail in case there was an incident. So you could have you given him a work permit? Have you got his RAMs? Have you got his training records? And if anything did go wrong, there was a paper trail to go back, and you did feel under pressure that you were trying to get the job done, that you were doing it in the way you'd been trained to do it.
Yeah, it's interesting.
But through our judgment, I was doing that job for 20 years and I didn't have any incidents.
No, it's good. It's a testimony to you, I think, Ray, of doing a good job. Maybe a bit of luck as well.
Bit of luck, yeah. We had plenty of run-ins with the health and safety people, mainly over steps and working at height.
Yeah, that's it. The easy win stuff.
Yeah.
I think that's a big thing I'm finding at the minute. I'm having lots of conversations with different industries. Is that a lot of the health and safety professionals, like your general health and safety professionals, where they don't focus on things like they'll walk past electrical work, but ignore it because
They don't understand
they
it.
don't understand it, and yet they focus in on things like the low hanging fruits or step ladders, slip strips and falls, that sort of stuff. So all the things that would have been invisible to as they're walking past, whereas you've probably got well known high risk consequence work going on that really could do with a second pair of eyes. But
Well, I got wrong once. I had a contractor. He'd come all the way from Manchester to do a task, and he didn't have any steps. So we lent him our site services steps, and they had a big SS on the side. So we knew that ours, and the health and safety guy come and give us a bollocking. You can't be lending people steps, because what happens if the steps fail and the guy falls off? We'll become liable because they're our steps. And they were brand new, they hadn't even been used, but we got wrong that day anyway.
so they're brand new, they've got a certificate of conformancy.
You had to use his own, even if what old rickety things.
Yeah.
But
I think that's some of the arguments we have, isn't it, as professionals with the health and safety department. That's where we come up and bang heads.
I know the
common
reasons.
sense applies.
We do all know the reasons for it, but when it becomes to things like that, so I said, should I send them back to Manchester or send them to the Metro Centre to buy some? He said, well, that's what you should have done instead of lending them yours. So,
yeah, we all love a good gripe about safety, Ray. It gets us through the day.
it does.
I think we've covered quite a lot. I think one of the things, I suppose, just to draw us to a bit of a close is if people listening could take one thing away from today, what would you want it to be?
Don't become complacent, and don't be forced into an action you don't feel comfortable with. I think there's a lot of pressure on people, alone working and getting the job done, but just remember, if one thing goes wrong, it could change the rest of your life, basically. Not to be too dramatic.
No, it's not dramatic. I think hearing your story for the first time only the other day, and then hearing it again today, I think it reiterates the impact of, something happens in that moment, but then it can have an impact for the rest of your life, and I mean, you've been unlucky in some ways, lucky in others, and but you've always got that in your mind, haven't you? I think, no, I think that's really, really good advice to just bear that in mind. I suppose, what's the biggest lesson that you've learned throughout your electrical career? What would you say to a young electrician or a younger Ray, if you could go back in time, about a career in electrical engineering?
I think try to not think you know everything, because you don't. And there's plenty of people to ask. It might be more difficult to find than they used to be, but I would always ask before you dive in.
That's a solid tip. No, that's really good. I think, I'd like to, thanks for sharing your experiences today.
No problem, thank you.
And your knowledge, the real stories. I think originally when we spoke, your questions were, what can I give that you can't find other places? And it is just your experience. I think you've spent such a long period of time in industry, and that's often overlooked, is the things that you build up over time, that they become just part of your way of working, and you just think it's how you work.
I think after that length of time, there's things that you don't even know they're in there somewhere because of that many years.
Yeah.
So common sense.
Well, appreciate you sharing them with us. Appreciate you being open and honest, and I know it's difficult as well talking about things that happened, and I'm sorry if we've opened up any old wounds there, but it's I think the fact that you shared it, if that helps one person out there not make a wrong decision, it's definitely been for the benefit. So thanks for that.
Thank you very much.
And thanks to everyone that joined and listened to the podcast. To all our listeners, whether you're an electrician, supervisor, manager, or business owner, please take the time to reflect on the lessons that we've discussed today. The consequences of an electrical incident can be life-changing, as Ray's alluded to today, but many are preventable through proper planning, competence, and commitment to working safely. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you.